So what, if anything, is better than a cup of coffee in the morning or on a cold afternoon? And I'm sure most people would agree, because we produce something like 10 billion kilograms of coffee grounds, that's 22 billion pounds every year, and most of it goes to landfill. Researchers in Australia have been looking at this very problem, and they've discovered that adding this stuff to concrete can create a stronger concrete, up to 30% stronger. Now, concrete is a mixture of stones, sand and cement, and when we think about it, probably we think about the Romans, who used it to the greatest effect, building bridges, roads and military installations, and this is the remains of the Roman fort at Reculva. Now, the ancient Greeks used concrete, but it can be said that the Romans perfected it, because in their mixture they used something called pozzolana, and pozzolana is a volcanic ash, but despite its name, what it really is a kind of glass dust. It's what's called an aluminosilicate. It's made up of aluminium, oxygen and silicon.
The thing about pozzolana or pozzolanic ash is that it will react with calcium hydroxide, or if you like lime, in the presence of water and at room temperature to form an insoluble calcium silicate hydrate and calcium aluminate hydrate, which have quite astonishing properties when it comes to cement. It's called pozzolana or pozzolanic ash because it was dug out by the Romans in Italy at Pozzuoli. In modern terms, it's understood to be any kind of material that is composed mostly of volcanic glass, and it's understood to be something called a geocomposite. Geocomposites in this sense can be thought of as more like artificial rocks, although geocomposite is a much broader term. The Romans mixed it 2-to-1 with lime just prior to mixing it with water, and the Roman port at Corsa was built of it. The three piers are still visible today, with the underwater portions in generally excellent condition, even after more than 2,000 years. Now, it has been said that the Romans put carbon into their concrete, but they didn't. And that probably arose because of the use of the word ash. Ash, however, doesn't mean carbon. The addition of carbon into concrete is a relatively modern idea. The only real question is where to get your carbon from. And one very interesting place is from coffee.
Of course, you can't just go throwing coffee grounds into concrete. The organic chemicals would leak out and weaken the concrete. First, there's a small amount of processing that needs to be done.
And that process is called pyrolyzing. Pyrolyzing breaks down the organic molecules, resulting in a porous carbon-rich charcoal called biochar that can form bonds with and thereby incorporate itself into the cement matrix. It consists really of just heating the coffee grounds without oxygen to a temperature of around 350 degrees centigrade or 660 degrees Fahrenheit. And that is a very low energy level. It's actually pretty easy to do this yourself. So you just put the material that you want to carbonise in at the bottom of the pot. Now, we are going to want to take this out later, and what we do is we create an environment where there's very little oxygen, but a material that will absorb any noxious off-gassing. Because I also do this with things like car tyres. There's quite a lot of sulphur in those. What I used to do with that is this stuff. This is just activated carbon. This particular stuff is for fish pond filters, but anything will do actually, and I use that. Because I'm going to pour a lot of carbon on top of that, what I do is put a bit of stainless steel wire on there. Now, we need to prevent oxygen getting in there in the same way you would do if you were charcoal making, and that's a piece of cake. You just fill the whole thing up with your activated carbon until it's full. And here's the kiln that we made in that video series, and unfortunately it's a bit big for that kiln actually because I put it in this pot, but I should have used a smaller pot and I could have used that kiln. But I'm going to use this one instead because it's a big old pot. And basically you stick it in there, turn your kiln on, let it ramp up to temperature, 4 hours later, turn it off again. And after 4 hours you just turn it off, leave it to cool naturally. So when this is cool enough, all you do is open it up, take it out. There we go. And you'll see that a little bit has gone, but it has preserved everything else. Now all we need to do really is pour it out. And when you've given it a wash and a sieve, this is what you end up with. Your biochar made from coffee grounds ready to mix into your concrete.
Once you've made your coffee ground biochar, what you do is replace 15% by volume of the sand with it, and you get yourself a concrete that's 30% stronger. Now, that's not the only thing that it does. It also allows you to use a different kind of sand. Because in concrete, generally, you have to use spherical sand. You can't use jagged sand. And spherical sand is only really found in rivers or at the bottom of the sea. And that's creating quite an environmental problem given the demand for concrete and the predicted amount that it's going to grow by. So using broader sands like desert sand is a huge thing that the inclusion of carbon into concrete will actually do. Of course, it also sequesters all of that carbon and prevents it going to landfill, as well as reducing the amount of concrete you need because it's 30% stronger. Anyway, I thought that was hugely fascinating because I know a lot of people are very interested in concrete and aircrete and alternative building, and this came out only last year and is still hot news. And of course they are warning that an awful lot of strength testing still needs to be done on it, but it is certainly very interesting and very exciting, which is why I wanted to share it with you. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and please do remember to like and subscribe.